Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Um, if you've seen my videos, subscribed to my channel, you know that for the past year, I made it a resolution to um, basically do at least one live stream once a week for the year, basically for every week, essentially. Or sorry, I meant to say I was made a resolution that I would at least once a week do a live stream talking about anything and everything, whatever it may be at that moment in time, whatever's going through my head at that point, and rant on whatever basically at that point. So today, there's not much that I see online or in the news as much. I mean, I try to avoid politics as much as I possibly can, as I said. So I guess talking about some things that are in the news, basically, one of the big things, of course, is the fact, with the X whole thing, and with Musk and what's his name, Musk and Zuckerberg, basically at a cage match. It's great publicity for both of them, basically. Put it that way. We know it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen, of course. It's a bunch of bogus stuff. It's all bogus. I can see them basically just trying to dull up some publicity for both their products. Zuckerberg mostly for Threads, and Musk for X basically at this point as well too. Sorry, that's me just drinking some beer. I know I shouldn't be drinking it, but I don't care honestly. It's from BJ's Brew House here, and it's one of those things where I drink every now and then, as part of a beer club member. Funny enough, I should say this: being here, being a beer club member at the BJ's Brew House, it was interesting. It had some perks, right? But then I was at another place out in San Juan Capistrano called Rancho Capistrano Winery, which is out in like San Juan Capistrano, San Clemente, and as well as Ladera Ranch. They don't have their own vineyards, but they get it outsourced from like Northern California, wherever it may be. They have their own wine club thing, and it was one of those things that are once a month, $75 for reds, or $50 for whites, or for mix, whatever it may be. I forgot the exact amount. It looked interesting as well too. It was nice to the point where once a month you would get 2 free wines. For 6 months, it's a minimum of 6 months, but you would get 2 free bottles of wine. The question is it good? And then if you come there often enough, you'll get some sort of discount on some wines. First class free, next glass would be $5, etc. And same thing for your guest at that point as well too. It was great in that perspective. Similar to like I said with the beer club at BJ's, probably some other places as well too. But the one drawback is like I was part of a beer club many years ago in New York called Toby's Public House, Public House. It was great. One of the nice things about it is you had enough people going there that once a month you'd get to on a Thursday, once a month on a Thursday, you'd get to essentially sample some of the distilleries or some of the brewers that would come by and put it on tap, and you got to sample a little bit with some a camaraderie going on. Like you get to meet other beer club members there and whatnot at that point. And also maybe some free pizzas in here and there for that matter. And that's one of the things I was asking about the wine club over at Rancho Capistrano Winery. Do they do that? They said they used to do that, but now they have like over 2,000 people that there's no way their place could actually accommodate these people for these type of things. They would love to have that back in again, but it's one of those things where like you had to be on a guest list and all that stuff, so they just stopped at that point, which made sense. That was one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, I'd rather go to become a member of a beer club membership or wine club membership where you get to meet all the other members and interact with them. That's one of the nice things about it. Not only with the fact of getting either some free food and discounted wine, or discounted beer, or free beer and free food, whatever it may be. It's also that camaraderie of knowing some of these people, like knowing the bartenders, knowing the help, knowing all these people, and getting to know all these people. That was great at that point, and that's what I kind of miss in this aspect of being here. With the fact that BJ's Brewhouse doesn't do that, unfortunately. I will say this though. It has paid for itself every now and then. The thing is like getting the pie pizza. The one drawback is you have to do a takeout for it. I was like, why? That's kind of dumb in that aspect because like at one point I did bring some people for some pizza, and then we just only had a slice or two, and then at that point we just kept buying more beer and more appetizers and more food at that point. So in the long term, it helped them in the long term by giving them more, bringing in more capital for them or more money for them. I mean, sorry, or more sales. But in this case, by taking it out, I'm like, you're losing out on the biggest feature of bringing people in and letting them share and then letting them have the beer and paying them, having them buy the beer or whatever it may be, but also buying more food because the more people you have, the more they're likely to finish off and you're not going to have as much. Buying a whole pie for me and my wife and maybe one or two other people, it's like not enough, and like it's not enough. I mean, it's enough to the point I'm like I can't even finish it all, so we just stop at that point. So I mean, honestly, I don't know what to do about that. But it's the same thing here at the Rancho Capistrano Winery. I think one of the Real Housewives of OC is goes there every now and then. I guess I don't know. I don't think she's a wine. If she's a wine club member, I'd be surprised. But maybe she is. Maybe she is. I don't know. One draw thing is like I don't want to drive to go there. That's one of the things I never want to do is drive while going to these events and all that stuff. If that was the case, it would be like Uber or Lyft if that's the case, and like if they can work closely with them at that point as well too to give you some discounts because like I was almost in the vicinity of the area, not that close of vicinity, but in the vicinity almost, which is good. But in any case, that's one thing at that point as well too, with the beer and wine club membership and all that stuff. Maybe even a pizza club could be even pizza club member, like whatever it may be. I mean nowadays you're seeing people with these apps with all these fast food places having apps installed on your phone. They just want the apps to collect that information. They need data. They need more data. Remember that. You're installing all these apps. They're asking for permissions. Those permissions are basically looking through certain things. What they're truly looking for is collecting data on you. That's what they're looking for. They're really collecting the data. When they said this loyalty membership stuff, that's a bunch of crock, actually. It's more of a case where like they just need the data. They first need your email, of course, and then they need the data out of your email or from your phone. They can associate all that stuff from there and then sell it off as an aggregate to other potential advertisers or whatever it may be and sell it off there. Selling off that information to these other data aggregators or data sellers, basically. That's one of the things you got to be careful about with all these apps you install on your phone, even the games as well too. Like, be careful on that. Um, from that, I will say this. Um, Last time I put a live on was because of the fact I was like, you know what, let me just put it live for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I try not to go that long. Honestly, it's not as beneficial, I would say, unless I'm playing a game and like sharing it with you guys, but I didn't in this case. This is me just ranting and talking. That's pretty much it. If you've seen my video, seen my channel and my content, you'll know that most of my videos are just all over the place. I don't focus on one thing. Maybe I realize now someone did mention in one of my comment in one of my things, like when I'm talking about some tech related stuff, it's like, hey, specifically like technology or software architecture and such, they said, hey, maybe rather than discussing it, like cut off some stuff, put in like some power slides in place, and then maybe more viewership. And I'm like, that's a good point. I should, and maybe a little scripted out, maybe scripted out a little bit. And I'm like, the whole purpose of the channel was to be non-scriptive, to be, not, that's not even a word, non-scriptive, but more of to not have a script, to just talk on the fly. But when it comes to technology and describing it, I think I might have to put in bullet points at least. And that's one of the things I do have is use bullet points. But should I put slides in place? I think I need to put slides in place at that point as well to drive my point. I think I've done slides here and there in some of my things, so I think I might have to do this in this situation as well too. And maybe metrics. I know I love metrics. I want to see numbers and metrics. For tutorials type of stuff, that's going to be kind of hard for me to do, specifically since I'm not on some of these environments, so I don't have access to them. If I did, it would be great. Like these tech reviews, these gadget reviews. I'd love to do gadget reviews, but if I had access to those gadgets, it'd be great. Like right now, like the Pixel 5 is one of the things I still have. Some say, oh, are you going to get a Pixel 7? I was like, no, I'm not going to get the Pixel 7. I'm going to wait for the Pixel 8. But now looking at the Pixel Fold, I saw the Pixel Fold. I'm like, that looks interesting. But seeing and hearing that the battery life isn't so great, I'm like, maybe I should hold off on that. And then, of course, there's the Motorola Razr. The unfortunate part is it's not part of the Pixel line, even though Android tries to come as close to the aspect of stock Android. It's not there though. Remember that. And one of the things is like when it comes to the camera, when it comes to the messaging, you have to install the Google uh, Photos and the Google Photos, Google Camera, as well as the Google Photo Camera, and as well as Google Messages, Android Messages, basically. Sometimes they're not on there by default. It's their own. And the reason why with Motorola it's going to be a little tricky because the fact is like it's the flip phone. So sometimes you'll use the phone. If you use the Google camera on it, it might not work entirely properly too. For that matter, I mean, for me, I remember when I had the OnePlus One, the first one, their phone was okay, but when I was like, some of the features that I wanted were on the Google Google Pictures or Google Camera. I downloaded that, put it on there, and to an extent it worked. To a certain extent, but certain parts it didn't work, and I'm like, this doesn't work because it wasn't optimized for the OnePlus One's camera and for the Android operating system, at that matter, that they were running. They were running CyanogenMod at that point, and it was one of those things where, like, good as it was, it wasn't great. And of course, that's why I think OnePlus One, I kind of moved away from it. I was like, I dropped it at that point. I will say this is like I did go with the another phone at one point, the Essential One. As good as it was, it sucked. The camera was horrible, and I couldn't install putting the Google camera on there did not work properly. It didn't help out in the long term. And the one thing as well too is like the modular aspect of things was one of the things that fell short on it basically at that point too. And I was like, it was a phone I was hoping to succeed, but it didn't. Rubenstein failed miserably on that. Now I think he's trying to focus on a phone that's more AI based. That's great now, but reality, I think they're just a step behind. It's like more of these other phones are coming into play with AI based phones at this point. So don't be surprised if Apple comes up with a 15. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the iPhone 15. I don't know what to do in this situation. Should one go with the Apple iPhone 14 or wait for another month for the 15 to come out? Because one of the two big things with the 15 that are going to change dramatically is one, or three things. Supposed rumors are one, it's the charging port. It's going to be USB-C finally, which if it is, that's great. Two, the battery life is going to be much better. And three, the bigger one is the island basically that they're talking about. It's probably going to be much more fluid and much more dynamic. And it'd be interesting to see what happens there at that point as well too. I don't know. I guess all that stuff leads to the fact of the fact that is also their chip as well too. The fact is like Apple making their own A9 chips at this point, which is interesting. But then there's also Google, where right now with the Tensor, it's a collaboration with them and Samsung. But I think they're trying to make their own chip at this point. They're trying to move away from Samsung so that they can build their own. Sad to see that both Qualcomm and Intel. Specifically Intel, it kind of sucks with Intel but considerably, because like they were the de facto chip at one point. Now, not so much compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon and the ARM-based. ARM is kind of losing traction now as a result because the fact is like Apple moved away from them. There's Qualcomm, and then of course there's Samsung with their own Samsung chipsets and whatnot. I was reading an article and like looking at the fact that there's going to be close to a $52 billion funding for chips to be made in the U.S., manufactured in the U.S. for that initiative. And Chuck Schumer, state senator of New York, is trying to push that to make New York benefit, one of the beneficiaries, them and Indiana basically, having those two states. Schumer for New York, and then I think the governor or not the governor, the state senator of Indiana, working with Schumer so that he could open up Indiana as well too with the manufacturing, the lost manufacturing that went out and outsourced into China. I think it's more of a case where like they're trying to bring it back to the U.S. to make sure that we don't ever fall into that trap that happened like during the pandemic where there was a shortage and we were dependent on China because of that. Because after China, they were the first, so all their workers were getting sick, so they weren't able to manufacture all these chips, which are quite reliant on so many different pieces of technology. It's not funny to that point. But it was surprising to see that, that he's trying to push it for New York, which makes sense in a ways. But I would see if there's not many chip makers that are willing to go to New York, though. They're willing to go to Arizona, which makes sense at one point, as well as Texas and maybe even Ohio for that matter too. Because why? Because well, they are red states. It's one thing the fact that they're red states, but the other factor is as well too is their cost of living is much cheaper than New York. New York is like high up there. Now trying to bring it up to upstate New York, like Syracuse, Albany, well not Albany, but trying to get to Albany, but like more of Syracuse, Corning possibly, Schenectady, Schenectady, and trying to like drawing a blank here. Well, basically above. I don't want to say Buffalo, but kind of sort of Buffalo as well too. I think they're trying to bring those economic areas to make the state grow considerably. Because like right now, the state of New York, most of the revenue is coming from New York City, basically more than anything else. Um, it's just like California, the state of California. The high, their GDP is basically generated from where? Two parts: LA County, but mostly Silicon Valley, which is San Francisco and San Jose, basically. So I think New York is trying to become that new tech hub at that point as well too. And they put it up in New York City. I think they're trying to develop it in another area as well too. Which, if they could, probably do Albany or Buffalo for that matter. If they could do that, that'd be great. But the problem is like no one's going to want to live in that cold as much per se. But it does work out when it comes to like data centers and all that stuff. I mean, hell, I would do if I could build a data center up there. I would basically because why it's cold enough up there to the point of like during the winter times, you could still take in the cold air to basically keep your servers cool down at that point as well too. And plus you got hydro electricity from there as well too with the dams. Like near Buffalo, if you can get that hydroelectricity to be generated off of that with the solar and whatever other non more clean energy, the better, right? Honestly. I mean, honestly, as a Long Island boy, though, I would love to see parts of Long Island grow even more with more and more businesses, but it is kind of getting hard to do. Um, you're seeing more of Long Island basically be more of like towards focusing towards more of the medical area more than anything else, like really hospital care more than anything else. I think that's okay, but at the same time, it'd be better if like other areas would grow into it at that point as well too. I mean, I remember Computer Associates, one of the biggest companies back in the early 2000s or late 90s. It was one of the biggest software companies in Long Island. And then, of course, what happened? The internet came along and they did not adapt. And look where they are now. Sorry for Computer Associates. It kind of sucks for them. Cheyenne Software was another big one as well, too, until they got bought out by Computer Associates. It'd be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, there isn't many internet companies or crypto companies that are based out of New York. Because New York has got these strict, stringent policies in place as well too. That's kind of sucky at that point too, and that's one of the things I think why you don't see as many large or new corporations or new companies coming out of Long Island or in Long Island more than anything else is because the fact is like they don't have as much of a funding as let's say New York City does, and the other aspect is like all of upstate New York as well too for that matter. So um, I don't know what to say about that, but let's put it this way. I mean, if I had a choice, maybe I would try to start something up in New York if I had that opportunity. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there might be some interesting things to use, but the thing is, needing the capital is very hard to do at that point. Quite honestly, I mean, I think maybe the next best thing is maybe biotech, creating a biotech company out there, and then hopefully building it up on top of that, basically doing that and like letting it grow from that perspective, because you do have enough of the talent pool there in the New York area or New York City metro area, I should say. The talent pool is there basically for sure. I mean, Cornell definitely has a pool, but it's a matter of like getting those people from Cornell to come down at that point as well too. Um, hmm. I'm just trying to look at the news, looking at I don't know. Oh, okay. I just saw TikTok is definitely. I didn't see this part. I didn't realize this, but it's true. TikTok is now allowing you to post text only posts. Um, and that's an interesting thing to do. I mean, I can see what TikTok's trying to do, trying to compete with Threads, trying to compete with X, and also the fact that they saw YouTube and Instagram as well too, because they saw what YouTube is doing or YouTube Shorts. You got YouTube Shorts, then you got YouTube videos, long form videos, and now they're allowing for posts posts at that point as well too. I think TikTok is trying to steal a little bit of a page from YouTube at that point as well too, so that they can like grow it out and making sure that YouTube doesn't overtake them at that point, and try to also beat out, of course, the Instagrams and the Threads and X world at that point as well too. Um, I was hoping, maybe one of the other things I said about like my chats. One with my lives basically is to do chats, open chats with people, and I'd love to eventually create a collaboration or collaborative live together, opening that up one of these days, like the way you do in TikTok. I was hoping to do that with YouTube with people, basically, collaborating at that point, like sort of discussing whatever it may be. As a Mets fan, there's not much to say. I mean, we knew they were going to lose. I knew they were going to lose, and of course, they're in the gutter. They're losing. They're on a losing streak. I think they're going to lose to the Cubs for sure. They're probably going to get swept by the Cubs, so they're probably going to lose nine in a row. The question is, what happens with Buck Showalter? Maybe he gets fired. I don't know. Maybe Carlos Beltran comes in and he becomes the manager. I don't know. We'll see what happens there at that point. Outside of that, I have nothing else to say, to be honest with you, at this point, honestly, because like I'm a little lost to say. Not lost, but lost of content to say, discuss at this point right now. I might come up with something later on in the day that's more recorded per se. This one is basically just going to go into a, what's that called, more of a live, then it'll become static. If you have any comments, please leave it in the comment section. I do read my comments, by the way. I do read them. I don't always respond to them very quickly because either one, I never got notified about it, or two, I just don't see it. And then when I do see it, I just forget about it before I could actually respond to it. And I only remember about it like 2 weeks later. I'm like, crap, let me go back and respond to what I saw. But with that, I'll leave it at that. And of course, as always, with my videos, more often than not, it's definitely always unscripted. More often than not, unedited. And of course, I want to say less. I'm going to say more and more or less unfiltered, but there's probably going to be some virtual backgrounds here and there. Of course, I'm going to be putting that in place, specifically the fact of more of a what's that called? Graphs and metrics put in play at that point as well too. But it'll definitely be unedited for sure. Like editing, as far as I won't take the best of. It'll be the same as doing a live at that point. Like just like now, like there's no way to edit a live in real time. I probably could download the video and then remix it around a little bit, but in reality, there's no purpose in doing that. And the same thing as well too is always unrehearsed. More often than not, it's unrehearsed. There might be some bullet points here and there when it's talking about tech stuff, because I will forget some stuff and I will have to have some bullet points, and so you'll probably see me watching the screen or two, whatever it may be. But other than that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, of course, unfiltered, unedited, and of course unrehearsed.